Howdy folks, and welcome to the Salt Mines Discord server Q&A for August. And if you're watching this as Monday's episode with Mingles, I've gotten it wrong already. I've just started, no. And if you're watching this as Monday's episode of Mingles with Jingles, then welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. Before we start, there's a little story I wanted to share with you. Now, this might come under the category of sharing too much information, but it's funny, so I'm going to share it with you anyway. So Sunday morning as we're recording this, and had to get up early and make sure I was ready for this. And of course, you know, you do the usual things when you get out of bed in the morning: brush your teeth, have a wash, take a dump. So I'm sitting on the porcelain throne, and I haven't been awake very long. and as I start to wipe, I lose my grip on the toilet paper. So I'm sort of perched precariously over the edge of the throne with this toilet paper dangling from my arsehole. And you know how cats like to play with things that dangle? You know, you get a bit of string and you wave it in front of the cat and the cat goes berserk. Because it's impossible to take a dump in private if you're a cat owner. Cat owners everywhere will sympathise. And let's just say Akazuki tried to go for the toilet roll that was dangling from my butt crack, and she almost got it and ran off with it. So that's what I did this morning. Yeah. No, warm socks, don't worry, I'm not editing this out. This is going up on YouTube. I thought I'd just share that one with you, just to kind of set the tone for the rest of this Q&A. So, yeah. But she didn't get it. I managed to recover the toilet paper in time, but yeah, she certainly had a good try. Anyway, let's have a look at the questions. So, Basement NATO Jesus wants to know, Dear Jingles, what's the most tabs you've had open on your PC at one time? Maybe I don't know, maybe this is just my OCD speaking, but I never have more than 5 or 6 tabs open at once. I don't think I can remember the last time I had so many tabs that they scrolled off the top of the bar, because it really winds me up. Rita is one of those people that will open tabs and leave them open for days. Never go back to them again, but they're still there and they're still open. So when you're trying to find something, there are 40 different tabs to choose from, and it slows a PC down to a crawl, and it winds me the hell up, but I never do it. Maybe it's just my OCD, but I mean, open something, use it, shut it down. I'm just weird like that. Although I do know that people they seem to be physically the complete opposite, and they're physically incapable of shutting down a tab once they've opened it, and it winds me the hell up. Rita's one of those people. Next question, from Did Nothing 2. Howdy Jingles, do you think it'd be interested in playing the new Monkey Island collaboration quest in Sea of Thieves? And if you do you plan on recording it like you do with this Q&A? Sea of Thieves. First of all, massive Monkey Island fan. First game was amazing. Second game was better. Third game was okay. And the rest were, yeah. I didn't realise, I mean, it seems logical that Sea of Thieves would do a Monkey Island collaboration. You know, it's all pirates and stuff. So it makes sense. But I never had a good experience with Sea of Thieves. Probably because I started playing it as soon as it came out, when there was basically nothing to do. And it was full of bugs. I do understand that it's been massively improved since then, and it's picked up a fairly healthy player base. It's a bit like No Man's... Well, it's not quite as bad as No Man's Sky was when it first came out, and it hasn't improved to the degree that No Man's Sky has since it first came out. But, you know, playing the same kind of sport here. But my experience of Sea of Thieves was so bad that I don't really want to try it again. Plus, it is still mostly... I mean... Unless things have changed drastically since the last time I played it, it is mostly just, you kind of need a group of friends to play with and make your own fun. And in that regard, it is one of the best of those type of games out there. But it's not that I don't have any friends, but they're usually doing other things or not on at the same time as me. So it's unlikely I'm ever going to do that. Panzerroofs says, Dear Mighty Overlord, I've heard you use the expression mouth-breathing window lickers several times now, and I would like to know where this expression comes from. What is the origin of this expression? A window licker is it's a Navy term. It's very, very bad, right? It's I'm going to hell for explaining this one. It basically, if somebody's calling you a window licker, they're calling you an idiot. But where it comes from, I am definitely going to hell for explaining this one. This is totally politically incorrect, and it's very bad. But the expression comes from, the special bus that takes the special kids to the special school. When the bus goes by, you will often see them with their faces glued to the window, licking it. And that's where the expression window licker comes from. I know it's wrong. I know I'm going to hell, but what can I say? It was a different time when the expression was coined, and I'm old and it's stuck with me. So that's where the expression window licker comes from. Mouth breather, same sort of thing. People standing around with their mouth open all the time, breathing through their mouth. So mouth breathing window licker is just an utter idiot. So there you go. Yamatalk 2 has the next question. Wow, it's a big one. Recently watched an episode of Border Control New Zealand where a New Zealand Navy patrol vessel was returning from Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands and had to go through a biosecurity inspection. Oh yeah. The whole ship was inspected, every fridge, supply closet and garbage bin included, as well as all souvenirs the crew had brought back with them. Did the ships you served on have to go through similar inspections when returning to the UK from abroad during your time in the Royal Navy? Also, did you acquire any fancy souvenirs from the places you were sent to? I never had to do a biosecurity inspection because we never went anywhere where there was any kind of risk of bringing anything back to the UK that we didn't already have. But your ships do get searched when you've been away on deployment. Particularly, you've been to places like, Colombia. You get a drug search when you come back. Where they bring the sniffer dogs on board, they go through everything. They search all the baggage, all the hiding places on the upper deck, everything gets searched. And they actually found something on one ship that I was on. Can't remember what it was. Might have been, I don't know, it could have been Southampton, Nottingham, Newcastle, Manchester, whatever. But on the top of the hangar, it was one of the Type 42 destroyers. Because of the way the hangar's arranged, that much I remember. Doesn't matter which ship it was. And there's a lot of storage on top of the hangar at the back of the ship. There's the AF 909 radar up there as well. So it's one of those places because of radio hazard that people don't normally go, because if the radar's on, you'll get cooked if you go onto the hangar roof. So to go up there, you need to get what they call RADHAZ clearance. And there were these, I think, big plastic tubes bolted down to the deck of the hangar roof that we use for stowing firefighting equipment. Really big 5-inch thick firefighting foam tubes. And somebody had stashed a whole bunch of cocaine in there. And they found it. And it delayed our getting back. We'd been away 6 months. You were, the day before you get back, they call it Channel Night. You have a big party on board as you wait outside Portsmouth Harbour or Plymouth Harbour, ready to go in the next morning. And the drug teams come on board. And that delayed our getting back in for an extra day while people were questioned and fingerprints were taken. And they eventually found the guy, and he wasn't happy. A whole bunch of people got into the shit for that. Anyway, yes, but yeah, no biosecurity inspection, but we always have drug inspections every time we come back from various different places. Volker802 says, good morning from under the Alps. I remember you said in one of the Microsoft Flight Simulator videos about your road trip on the Hells Highway. Would you be willing to share more information about your journey here now? Never actually meant to do a video on that, and have ran into all kinds of problems with audio mostly. I'd just gotten some new microphones and they just weren't working properly. So we shit-canned that whole idea of actually doing a video, and we just enjoyed ourselves. This was me and my friend Roy. A couple of years back we did Hell's Highway, the route that the 3rd Armoured Corps took during Operation Market Garden, all the way up to, well, almost as far as Arnhem. It was a great trip. We saw a whole bunch of stuff, including a bunch of stuff that we didn't even know was there, that we just bumped kind of just ran into when we were looking for other things. One of the best museums, I can't remember what it was called. We were looking, oh shit, I probably should turn my email client off. I don't know if you caught that, but I'll guarantee the recording did. So my apologies to anybody who heard that watching this as an episode of Mingles with Jingles. But when we got to Nijmegen, and Nijmegen's amazing. We stayed there a couple of days. All sorts of things happened in Nijmegen in 1944, one of which was the 82nd Airborne under General Jim Gavin, after whom the bridge over Nijmegen is now named, out of gratitude for what his division did during the war. He was given... They landed sort of south and to the east of Nijmegen, and they were looking across a plain, and there was this big old forest, because that was Germany right there. Big old forest that could have been hiding any number of German armoured or infantry divisions. Now, his written instructions were to seize the bridge at Nijmegen, and then he was given verbal instructions by General Jim Browning. Nothing was written down. He was just given verbal instructions to ensure that the heights, I mean, they call them heights, but remember, this is the Netherlands, so they were about 30 metres above sea level, right? And this gentle slope leading down to the forest in Germany on the other side of the plain. He was given verbal instructions to ensure that he held those heights against any German counterattacks. And for some bizarre fucking reason, Jim Gavin took an entire day to actually complete his written mission, get troops into Nijmegen and hold the bridge, and he only sent one platoon. He had an entire division. He sent one platoon, and he kept the rest to secure the heights. As a result of which, the single company of Germans that were holding Nijmegen at the time managed to reinforce, and it took them 3 days to clear them out and get the bridge.
We totally got this.
And while we were looking for the heights, I can't remember the actual name of the place in the Netherlands, we came across this museum. We didn't even notice the museum at first. We were just driving down the road, actually on the heights, but the Netherlands is so flat, you didn't realise you were actually on it. And I was like, oh, tank! And there's a Sherman parked by the side of the road, so we stopped to take a look at the Sherman and realised that it was the gate guard for this museum, and there was an airborne museum there. And it was fantastic. And there were all these little things scattered around the Hell's Highway route. You'd see, as you're driving up the highway, and there's like dense forest on either side, and then there's just this tiny little graveyard with like 6 graves in it. And you're thinking, wow. And it was well looked after. The Dutch look after the war graves amazingly well. But just this tiny little graveyard for 6 people, and then you realise it was the crew of one tank that got knocked out and were buried by the side of the road. And then after the war, the Dutch came and they cleaned it up and they made a proper little war grave out of it. So, and the Netherlands is scattered with places like this. I mean, apart from the fact that the Dutch are probably the friendliest people on earth, which is a fantastic reason to go to the Netherlands. Also, they do amazing cheese, but they're sneaky little fuckers and they keep it all to themselves. They only export the shit, like Edam. But they've got all of these little farms in the polders, and these little farms all make their own individual brands of cheese, and it's fantastic stuff. And if you go to the pubs in Nijmegen, the chef in the pub will have a deal with a little farm 5 miles away out in the polders, and he will exclusively buy all of their cheese, and you will only be able to get it in that one pub in Nijmegen, and then in another pub in Nijmegen they'll get their cheese from another one of these little farms, and it's amazing stuff. But they keep it all to themselves, the selfish bastards. But yes, definitely, if you get the opportunity to go to the Netherlands, please do. And the whole route from God, I can't remember the name of the city at the start. Eindhoven, there we go. I knew it would come to me. Eindhoven, Nijmegen, Arnhem, in particular, is a fantastic trip to do because there's just so much to see there. Particularly when you get to Nijmegen and Arnhem itself. Anyway, Hans Wein sounds a bit Dutch. Dear Jingles, what do you think about the Royal Naval Reserve, in particular about politicians serving it? The Royal Naval Reserve has always been a very, very important part of the Royal Navy. And not so much now as it was in the past, but in like World War II in particular, huge number of Royal Navy ships, particularly things like the minesweepers, the coastal protection ships, patrol ships, and things like that, were crewed almost exclusively by Royal Naval Reserve. All of the trawlers that were converted to patrol ships, Royal Navy Reserve officers and crew. These days, they don't fill almost as large a frontline role as they used to. Although, in the event of an emergency, a lot of them will get activated and fill in the blanks in the actual Navy. But they've always been there to support the Navy. So, they're fantastic. And my last job in the Navy was at the Admiralty Interview Board, HMS Sultan in Gosport, where Royal Navy, Royal Naval Reserve, and Royal Marine officer candidates came through for selection. Before actually joining and going through training, they would pass a sort of selection course that we ran at the Admiralty Interview Board, and we saw a lot of Royal Naval Reserve officers there, and most of them were really, really good, or potential Royal Naval Reserve officers. Now, about politicians serving in it, that's obviously some news that I missed. I mean, there's no reason. A lot of these reserve officers in particular, in fact, the SAS even have a reserve company, and they're all basically lawyers and barristers and doctors and politicians. A lot of reservists are, professionals like that. I didn't realise that there was anything particular about politicians serving in the Royal Navy Reserve that had cropped up in the news recently. But if that's a thing, I should probably read more news. But yeah, in particular about politicians serving in the Royal Naval Reserve. I mean, as long as they put the job ahead of their political ambitions, I don't have a problem with it. But the Royal Naval Reserve in particular is great. I mean, very professional and not professionals, if you know what I mean. Oh, wow. Yang Wen Lee says, "Dear Overlord, are you recording?" I am. If I'm not, I'm going to look pretty stupid in about an hour. Next question from Abu Scar. I can't even pronounce that. "Dear Jingles, what was the largest explosion you ever witnessed?" Oh, that's a good one. That would have to be... Okay, so I was on HMS Newcastle, Type 42 destroyer. We were South Atlantic guard ship. This is the job that used to be known as the Falkland Islands guard ship, where you would go down for 6 months and basically patrol around the Falklands and do resupply runs to South Georgia and things like that. But then the government kept scrapping ships and not replacing them, while at the same time refusing to reduce the commitments that the Navy had to perform. So we went from being Falkland Islands guard ship to South Atlantic guard ship. South Atlantic's a rather big place for one ship to cover, but it was better for the crew, I suppose, because you didn't have to spend 6 months down the Falklands. You got to do South America as well, so there was that. But we were doing one of these resupply runs from the Falklands to the tiny little garrison in South Georgia. And again, this is another good thing about getting this particular posting, because you get to go to places like South Georgia that you would never normally go to. I mean, people pay thousands and thousands to go on these Arctic cruises and visit the Falklands and South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands and so on and so on. And I got paid to do it, so hurrah. The thing is, on this particular resupply run, the ship decided to take a whole bunch of Army and Air Force officers and men along with us, just to, show off the ship and take them to South Georgia, which they would never otherwise have gotten to visit. So there's all these colonels and squadron leaders and wing commanders on board the ship. And on the way back from South Georgia's amazing, by the way. I don't know if you saw the Microsoft Flight Sim video that I did. The glaciers there. Don't get me wrong, Microsoft Flight Sim does a pretty good job of showing you what South Georgia's like, but it doesn't even begin to compare to being there in person. Those glaciers, they're just this deep blue ice. Ice that's been ice for like 5 million years, right? And it's blue, sort of turquoise aquamarine, and it groans. Well, you can hear that stuff grinding off the rock at the bottom of the glacier, and it makes your lungs rattle with the noise it makes. And when that shit breaks off, you have to stay at least 1 kilometre away. Which, trust me, is close enough. Otherwise the ship will get swamped in the wave that it creates. But anyway, Speaking of glaciers and icebergs, on the way back, we spotted this huge tabular iceberg. So it's basically just this massive flat block of ice. It was about 2 kilometres across. It's huge. And we thought we'd put on a gunnery demonstration, show off ship's firepower to all of the assembled Air Force and Army personnel. So they started off with the 20 mil, which, you know, it's only a 20 millimeter. It's not that impressive. But we were about 2 kilometres away from this berg, well within 20 mil range. Only just within 20 mil range, but close. I mean, it's an iceberg. How can you miss? So the 20 mil gunner blatted off a couple of hundred rounds, and you could just about see the impacts. But you know, 20 mil, it's nothing special. So then they fired up the 30 mil, bigger gun, slightly bigger impact, made a loud noise, very impressive. So then we fired up the big boy, the 4.5 inch gun, and missed. And missed. And missed again. You see, the thing about the 4.5 inch naval gun on the front of a Type 45 destroyer is it's a very, very good gun. There's no, it's completely automated. You don't have to. You can put a crew in it, but you don't need to. And it can basically simulate an entire gun battery by very cleverly, like it'll fire the first shot at a very high angle, the second shot at a slightly lower angle, and then a slightly lower angle, and then a slightly lower angle, and then a slightly lower angle, so that all 5 shots arrive at the target area at the same time. And it's like having an entire gun battery with one gun. They're very, very good. Radar guided, and if we'd used the radar, it would have worked perfectly, because it is a very, very good system. But some genius decided they were going to use, they've got these backup systems on the bridge wings where basically a guy with stands on a pedestal with an aiming mount, and he just points the aiming mount at whatever you want the gun to fire at, and the gun slaves to that and fires at it. And the aiming mount wasn't working properly. So we managed to miss an iceberg the size of Manhattan from a range of 2 kilometres with a 4.5 inch gun. Eventually they figured out what the problem was, but it was too late. I mean, the Army and the Air Force people were pissing themselves laughing. You know, here's our firepower. Oh, you couldn't hit an iceberg the size of Manhattan from 2 kilometres. We did eventually sort it out, and we scored 1 direct hit, and that is the biggest explosion I've ever seen. So thanks for the question. Right, where are we now? Let's have a look. Grumthar, 30 and Robert. Also Dutch, apparently. Jingles, will Flambas be joining in a Q&A again? He's always welcome, but we don't have any plans to do it. So, yeah, no reason why not. I can't remember what the reason was the last time Flambas turned up and joined in. Perhaps it was when he was actually, because he visited. He came over to England to see Tiger Day and then go to the Imperial War Museum. And I put him up for the weekend at my place. That might have been why we did it. I can't remember. But yeah, no objection to it. We just don't have any plans to do it at the moment. Next question from Yalara. Hello, oh mighty lord of the salt mines. Let us say, just for the lols, that you will reincarnate as a schoolgirl in the Girls and Panzer universe. Basically, Darjeeling with a white beard. Fair enough. If you can have a choice in the matter, in which school would you like to attend, which tank would you like to be in, and which role? Tank's nationality doesn't have to be the same in the school. Well, I wouldn't like to be in the British school, because they drink tea all the time, and I can't stand tea. I'm definitely a coffee man. Oh, you see, these are the kind of questions that really catch me off guard, because I have to come up with the answer like that. Because we're doing this live. It's a regular episode of Mingles with Jingles, I have time to think about it. I'd probably have to go with the American school, and it would probably be a Sherman, because, well, that's the thing. The American school got all the best stuff. And that was kind of, you know, true of the US Army during the war as well. I mean, we had a lot of American servicemen in this country. This is where the British reputation for bad food comes from, by the way, because we were rationed. Nobody in this country starved during the war in the way that people in Europe were starving, because we basically mobilized the entire population to grow stuff. Everybody was growing their own food. Even if all you had was a window box, you would grow something in it. But you know, things were still, even though nobody was starving, things were tight. and then hundreds of thousands of Americans were coming over, and they had to be fed. And so, in order to not put any undue strain on our food situation, the American government sent food over to feed their own troops. And they got the good stuff. They were getting like steak and eggs for breakfast, you know. We hadn't seen any meat since 1938, right? And so all of these Americans are coming over and they're being fed really well on their camps. And then they're going out for the night to go to a British pub or something to have something to drink. And the only things that we have are like turnip stew, right? Because nobody was starving, but the food wasn't great. We had enough to survive on, and that was basically it. So, yeah, I would probably have to go for the American Tank School because they have all the best stuff, including the good food. Next question from Catster. Morning, Jingles. Just a quick one. You might have said it before, but for the benefit of anyone else who might not know, do you still feature War Thunder ground realistic battles and air battles? Right, this is not something... This is a very, very good question. I suppose now's as good a time as any to mention it. I don't have War Thunder installed anymore. And it's not because I have a problem with War Thunder or with Gaijin Entertainment. This happened very, very recently. I started getting emails saying that somebody had logged into my War Thunder account. Now, every time I log into my War Thunder account, I get an email saying somebody logged into your War Thunder account from Portsmouth, UK. I was like, yeah, that was me. That's fine. Well, I started getting emails saying somebody just logged into your War Thunder account from fucking Singapore. And then somebody just logged into your War Thunder account from Moscow. And I thought, well, that's not me. Here's the bizarre thing. You remember when I moved house, I also had to change my email address. So my War Thunder account was associated with my old email address, but I changed that to the new email address. And I was getting these messages to the new email address saying, hello, old email address. Somebody just logged into your account from Singapore. Somebody just logged into your account from Moscow, which was really, really weird. So the reason I didn't do anything about it was I thought this was some kind of scam. Somebody was trying to get me to click the link to check my account activity and take me somewhere that I didn't want to go. So I didn't do anything about it immediately because of the mix-up with the email addresses that was very suspicious. But then eventually I did log into War Thunder and realised that somebody had not only been logging into my account, they'd also changed my name. I still had all of my aircraft and tanks and stuff, but somebody had been playing my account. So here's the thing. When that happens, the only thing you can do is lock your account so that nobody can use it, including yourself. And then you have to go through the whole reset thing, which is difficult at the best of times, but next to impossible when you have two different email addresses. The one that you're using and the one that the account was registered under. And so I just thought, fuck it, it's not worth the effort. So I no longer have a War Thunder account. I mean, I do, but nobody can use it. It's probably possible to unlock it and get it back, but right now, I really just can't be bothered. So thanks for the question, but that does mean that there are going to be no War Thunder videos in the immediate future until I can eventually be bothered to sort it out. Oh, this is a good one. Zoe wants to know, Jingles, what's the worst thing you got up to while in the Navy? Oh, that depends how you define worst, really, doesn't it? I think the least fun I ever had when I was in the Navy was the very first time I went through BOST. So BOST is Basic Operational Sea Training. And it's not like basic training. It's something that a ship does before it goes on a deployment, particularly if it hasn't done any operational sea training in a while. And BOST used to last 8 weeks. And the first week is the harbour week, where you're in harbour and they come on board and they just check the material state of the ship and all your record keeping, and there's just inspections all day, every day, for a week. And then the second week, you start going to sea in the various different exercise areas around the south coast, and then the staff come on board and they do your sea check and they check everything, and it's just, again, they're just looking for stuff that's wrong. And then it's however many weeks, if Back the first time I did a Bost, it was then 7 weeks of continuous sea training staff coming on board and trying to break you. There's no other real way to describe it. They just put you through hell for 2 months. And at the end of it, you either pass or they make you do it all again. And, oh, God. And it was horrible. At the time, I was a radio operator, so a member of the operations department. And, the fighting arm of the ship. And they really put you through the ringer. Plus, I mean, you're watchkeeping anyway, so you're doing a 1 in 3 watchkeeping system. So you're on watch, then you're working on the upper deck, and then you get to sleep. And then you're on watch, and then you're working on the upper deck, and then you get to sleep. And there's 3 different watches in the communications office, all rotating around that. And you can guarantee that during the 4 hours of the day when you're allowed to sleep, something's going to happen. There'll be a whole ship fire exercise, and you'll basically, you're lucky if you get 2 hours sleep in every 48, right? It was absolutely horrible. So that was the least fun that I ever had. Interestingly, when I branch changed and became a writer, it was easy because you're a day worker. You start at 8, you finish at 4, and there's plenty of time off. Plus, basically, your sea training is done on the first day of the staff sea check. So you do the first harbour week, and then you do the staff sea check on the Monday of the second week, and then that's basically it. They've checked all of your records. I'm working in the ship's office. Records are all I do. And then from that point on, I'm basically just a first aider. So it was great. Meanwhile, all of the people in the warfare department are running around ragged. I'm like, hey, it would suck to have your job. So that was actually really cool. But as a member of the warfare department, it's absolutely horrible. So that was the least fun that I ever had when I was in the Navy. Perth Wolfman says, Jingles, have you seen that Breath Edge 2 is coming? I don't think I ever finished Breath Edge the first time around. That's the thing. I really, really enjoyed it right up until the part where it turned into Subnautica and you started doing base building. And then I kind of lost interest. All the funny shit before that point was really, really amusing. And I don't know what it was, because I really enjoyed Subnautica, the whole base building side. I don't know, maybe I just wasn't in the right frame of the mind when I started doing Breath Edge, because apparently their base building stuff was really, really good as well, but it just kind of, there wasn't anything funny happening, so I kind of lost interest. Sorry. Ben Marine says, Mighty Jingles, what's your favourite ice cream flavour? Mint choc chip. Maybe I'm just weird, but I do love mint flavour ice cream with little chips of chocolate in it. I'm quite a fan of strawberry. I suppose everybody likes strawberry. But I don't like chocolate ice cream, which probably makes me weird, because I know chocolate ice cream is most people's favourite flavour, but no, can't stand it. Mint with little bits of chocolate, that's fine. But actual chocolate ice cream, too much. Oh wow. Mongo says, Dear Rear Admiral Jingles, Lord of the Salt Mine, my question for you is, what are your thoughts on the 1973 to 1977 BBC show Warship? I was only 3 at the time, right? I'm not that old. I was born in 1970. I remember seeing, obviously not when they were originally screened live, because at most I would have been 7 years old, but I do, because they repeat things on the BBC, so I probably saw it when I was very, very young. The thing you have to remember is we emigrated to South Africa when I was 12, so there would have only been a 5-year window for me to actually see that and remember it, or want to watch it, aged between 7 and 12, and then we moved to South Africa and then Swaziland, and so I would never have caught any of these things. But I do remember being fairly impressed by what I did see, and you can catch some of these episodes on YouTube as well, and they are kind of worth it. The thing that I do remember watching, which was absolutely terrible, was they tried to do a soap opera about the Navy. I can't remember what it was called, but it was fictional, but they filmed it all on board proper Navy ships, and they filmed it all in the dockyard in Portsmouth and stuff. And it was just comical how much stuff they got wrong. And just how unrealistic it was. I remember there was this one episode. I mean, some of dialogue was just terrible. There's this one episode where they were out having a drink in Portsmouth one night, and somebody got into a fight, and somebody ended up getting, killed. One of the officers, and then the story continued. And a couple of days later, people from the ship were out, and they saw people from the other ship and they were just, "You killed our officer." I mean, who talks like that? I mean, it's just. And I remember there's another episode where the captain of the ship and the XO were walking down Middle Slip Jetty in the dockyard, and they were just talking about what had happened in that episode. And I remember clearly remember they started off in Fountain Lake Jetty, and they walked from one end of Fountain Lake Jetty to the other end of Fountain Lake Jetty to get to the ship. And along the way, they passed HMS Havoc, the Damage Control and Firefighting Training Unit, which is on Whale Island, 3 miles away. Right, they passed the Royal Marine Band headquarters, which is in HMS Nelson, like half a mile at the other end of the dockyard. They did all of this while walking down Fountain Lake Jetty. It was like going from France to Germany via Honduras. It was. So yeah, I can't remember the name of that show, but it was absolutely terrible. I think they got 1 season and then it got cancelled. Special asked, I had to query this question earlier, opinions on the EDF series. I had no idea what the EDF series was. Apparently it's called Earth Defense Force. It's a sort of 1950s B-movie style, like defend against the attack of the giant ants and all that kind of thing. Never heard of it. The only thing I know is basically what other people told me in the half an hour since I spotted this question earlier. So I can't answer that question, I'm afraid. I have no idea what it is, but it does sound interesting. Hi Jingles, hope you are well. This is from Gravity Falls 618. Of your model kits, which is the one that you most enjoyed putting together and why? How can I put this? I'm going to let you in on a secret. I don't enjoy putting model kits together. I love painting them, but it's the putting together of the kits that I don't like. Basically, I think Tamiya, or Tamiya, however you pronounce them, probably got the reputation of doing the best made model kits that fit together without any massive problems. But I've had other kits, in particular the KV2 that I did from Zvezda, a Russian company, I think, or possibly Ukrainian, did not fit together well. Huge amount of work they need to do. And I appreciate for a lot of model makers that part of the challenge of actually getting the kit to fit together properly is part of the appeal. But no, stop making it hard. I just want to put it together and paint it. So the one that I enjoyed the most was Druss the Old Barbarian, or was it Bress the Old Barbarian, which was the bust of this old barbarian. And I enjoyed that the most because I was really, really proud of the paint job that I did. I always had problems doing skin. And so I put a lot of effort in getting that right. And I was very proud of that result. So that would be the one that I enjoyed putting together the most because it was a bust. It had 4 parts, so it was easy to put together. And I was most proud of the result that I got out of it. June McJune says, Jingles, do you have plans to continue the Home with a Gnome channel? Would love to see more vids on there. Yeah. I recently got a notification from YouTube that they were going to demonetize that channel because I hadn't done anything in a year. And yeah, I haven't done anything in a year. It was no. It was one of those ideas that seemed good at the time, but it was just. Here's the thing: I love cooking and things like that, and making hot sauces and cooking chilies and so on and so on. But what I don't like doing is record myself doing it because it turns something that I enjoy into a job, and it drains the fun out of it, and also getting the right camera angle and the particular sound. I don't know anybody out there who's ever actually tried to record any video professionally or even semi-professionally. The actual video part of it is easy. Sorting out the sound levels is a bloody nightmare. And it just turns the whole thing. Well, it makes it take twice as long to cook the food. I mean, when it's done and then you're serving it up to somebody and you're seeing the expression on their face as they bite into it, that's great. But the process becomes so much more of a ball ache when you're recording it. So I just stopped doing it. Sorry. Bearcat Racing, Jingles, can you pay the floof tax? Thanks. Of course, of course. Let me have a quick look around. I've got the headphones on, so if they're crying, I can't really hear them. Oh, no, we're in a floof-free zone at the moment. I don't know where they are. They're probably sleeping off. But I will, I will put some pictures up at this point during the Mingles with Jingles episode. And the second I see the girls, they will get scritches. So thank you, Bearcat Racing, for reminding me. Low-level Royal Air Force says, Jingles, hope you're all well. Just wondered, do you keep up to date with the current Royal Navy at all? Probably not as much as I should. Because, I mean, it's probably changed. I keep thinking, when I was in the Navy, and it wasn't that long ago, but it was a long time ago. It was more than 10 years since I retired in 2011. And the Navy was going through massive changes continually when I was in, and I did 22 years, and it's been 11 years now. I've been out half as long as I was in, and it's probably changed out of all recognition now, so I'm not really in a position to comment on current events in the Navy because I'm just completely out of touch with it. That doesn't mean that I can't continue to tell stories about when I was in the Navy because, that's fine, that's different. But it's probably all very, very different now, although some things never change. I mean, I remember when on board HMS Belfast in London, and don't forget, that's a World War II light cruiser. I mean, it's a very big light cruiser, but it's a World War II light cruiser, and it was astonishing how similar it looked to the ships that I served on in the 90s and the 2000s. So many things didn't change, because if it works, why change it? Things like firefighting lockers and all the damage control and firefighting kit and the way everything was painted and arranged, it was all exactly the same as it was during the Second World War on HMS Belfast. So things like that probably haven't changed too much, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I know that, like, the accommodation was the only thing that had really changed, because you went on board the Belfast and there'd be a big mess deck, and I'm like, okay, where are the beds? No, people slung hammocks. There were a couple of bunks, but there'd be 40 men in here, and they'd all just sling hammocks from the various different beams and girders every night, and then roll them up again in the morning. So we went from that to, I don't know, when I was on board HMS Newcastle and 2Q Port Mess, there were 14 men in that mess, and that mess was probably the same size as your living room, with 14 men living in it. But we each had a bunk, so it wasn't that bad. And now you go to modern ships, like the Type 45 destroyers that they're building, and everybody has cabins. You might have 6 people in the cabin, but that's it. There are no 40-man mess decks anymore. People have a bit more privacy. So the standard of accommodation is changing, but basically everything else hasn't changed since the Second World War. Right, where are we now? General WCJ, how are we doing for time? We're going to have to start wrapping this up. Well, excuse me. Sorry about that. When you were in the Navy, did you sing any sea shanties? If so, what was your favourite? We didn't really sing sea shanties in the sense that you think, like when you watch like Pirates of the Caribbean and the songs that they sing. The Navy used to sing songs like that as well. But we did have some songs. Some of them you probably wouldn't get if you weren't, like, for example, as a radio operator, doing visual signalling from ship to ship at sea using flashing light. Using flashing light, you'd send Morse code, and W, or whiskey, is an indication to the ship that you're communicating with that they're not pointing their light at you properly. So if you see somebody flashing W's at you, it means train your light, point it at me properly, I can't read what you're saying. So the radio operators used to sing, and I do apologise to Frank Sinatra for this one, strangers in the night, exchanging IDs, whiskey, train your light, HMS Ganges, stuff like that. Or another favourite was, well, I'm on top of the bridge looking down at the forecastle, and the only part of ship that I can find is a killick and 2 scrubbing out with pusses blue. Stuff like that. You won't understand a single word that I'm saying unless you understand Navy slang. And that was part of the fun. It was like our own little private language, and the songs that we sang to each other would reflect it. And we just make shit up based on popular songs, exactly like that. Next question from Snazzy. Don't worry, I'm not editing that out. Next question from Snazzy. Good morning, Jingles. Hope you're well. Will you be doing any more museum videos or Home with the Gnome? Home with the Gnome, already addressed. I found them super fun and relaxing to watch, but some of your old museum videos have gone missing, like Duxford and the US Air Force Museum. Some of those, yeah, because I was a naughty gnome and I used copyrighted music. And then the apocalypse happened. So a lot of those videos had to go. I would like to do some more. What's the place? Is it Henley? The Air Force Officers College. Apparently they've got a great museum there. Because me and my friend Roy, the guy that I did the Hell's Highway road trip with in the Netherlands a couple of years ago, we want to do something this year. And I will definitely, we don't know what it is that we're going to do. Maybe go over to Normandy, Phoenix Bridge, that sort of thing. Phoenix Bridge? Pegasus Bridge, sorry. That sort of thing. And I'll definitely take the camera with me and I'll probably film something. I had the opportunity, because it's a very, very... When I went to Uxbridge, the Battle of Britain bunker, and the RAF Uxbridge Museum, tiny little museum, not very big, but a lot of really, really good stuff in there. And I didn't think to take a camera with me because I was going there for a game presentation. Classified, France, 1944, from Absolutely Games, published by Team 17. I played the game, and then we did the escape room in the bunker, and it was a really, really good day. But I didn't think to take the camera. So yeah, I'm bad, and I need to get better. But I do plan to do something this year. Me and Roy just need to decide where we're going to go. And I'll take the camera along and I'll record something. We're going to make this one the final question, so my apologies to everybody who didn't get the question answered. But actually, you know what? I think I've covered probably 75% of the questions, so we've done pretty well this week. You can thank the staff for that, by the way, limiting everybody to one question only, so we can get more people's questions answered. And here we go, from Rick7709. Hi Jingles, we all know you love an Aliens Dark Descent. Would you consider going back and doing an Aliens Colonial Marines playthrough? And maybe Aliens versus Predator? It would be so fun seeing you running around as an alien. I am loving Dark Descent. It's easily the best game I've played this year. It's such a good game, and it's really hard. I am not playing on a high difficulty setting, and it's still kicking my arse. Although I'm doing stupid shit. Although not as stupid as I've seen other people doing. And I think, as you watch the series, you'll see how I improve as I go along. But, I still end up doing stupid shit because I'm me. Now, Aliens Colonial Marines. I'm probably gonna upset a lot of people here. I know that Colonial Marines wasn't a good game. Right? I'm not trying to defend Gearbox. They really dropped the ball on that game, and basically lied and deceived everybody about what the game was going to be and what you could expect to do in it. But I still enjoyed playing it, probably because I'm a massive Aliens nerd. And the game kind of came out of nowhere for me. I didn't really see any of the previews and, promotional stuff. So I didn't really have massive expectations when I went into playing it. And it was okay, although the story was utter garbage. No spoilers for anybody who hasn't played it yet, although let's face it, if you haven't played it by now, you probably never will. But just no to the story. And yet, it was fun to play, especially if you were doing it in co-op. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I enjoyed it as much as I did too, because I played it in co-op with Rita. And that made it probably better than just a single-player playthrough. Aliens versus Predator, I don't know. That game's getting a bit long in the teeth these days. But Colonial Marines as well. It didn't, when it came out, it didn't even look as good as it did in the previews. One of the reasons that, one of the things that Gearbox was lying about. But you'd think you could go back and up the graphics settings to maximum and set it at higher resolution on a modern hardware and it would look better. And yet it doesn't. It still looks rough and pixelated, which is, And yeah, I did still find it fun to play. Going through and unlocking all of the rare weapons and so on and so on. I did really enjoy that. So possibly a Colonial Marines playthrough, just for shits and giggles. Maybe do that as a Sunday video. But Aliens vs Predator, probably not. That game's getting really old now. But more Dark Descent coming, definitely. I am absolutely loving that. It's easily the most fun I've had playing games this year, and it's just technically great. It's not perfect. There are a couple of things. It I don't want to be. I want to be careful here and not give any spoilers away. But let's just say the ending kind of strays into Mass Effect 3 territory. No, I've already said too much. It's fine. It's fine. It works. But it's it's one of those things where it's absolutely amazing, except for the last 10 minutes. Um, but you'll see because the videos are coming. Anyway, we're going to put a line under that one. That is it. I need to go and grab some more coffee because this one went cold about half an hour ago. Thank you to everybody who turned up. Thank you to the staff for organising all of this. And we'll see you probably on the first Sunday of September. To those of you who turned up to post your questions and listen to this live, thank you for turning up. I hope you enjoyed it. To everybody who's watching this as an episode of Mingles with Jingles, take care, and I'll catch you next time.